Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be taking a look at 538's new presidential election forecast. But before I start, I'd like to say if you like my content, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you know when we upload, and also leave a like and comment. And with that said, let's get into it. So today, 538 dropped their first presidential election forecast for 2024. They do this every year, so I figured I'd go through it, take a look at it, and see what they have to say. So the forecast starts with win probabilities for each candidate. It says Biden wins 52 times out of 100 and Trump wins 47 times out of 100. And they elaborate a little bit further. Right below that, they ran 1,000 simulations, and in 522 of them, Biden was the Electoral College winner, and in 474 of them, Trump was the Electoral College winner. And in 4 of them, it was a 269 to 269 tie. And if we scroll down here, we can actually see a sample of all of these projections. So you can see that it pretty much looks like a normal standard curve. And up here are the 4 where they tie. And if we take a look at all of these samples they gave, you can see that in most of them that are consolidated in the center here, Biden and Trump are both not winning by very large margins. As you can see, the closer to the middle of this graph you get, there are way more likely scenarios. And so that basically means this election is going to be very close no matter who wins, according to their statistics. And if we scroll down, we can actually see the polls that are influencing this forecast, which is interesting that they have Biden win, because if you expand this and look at all of the polls here, just eyeballing it, it does look like Trump would have a lead in this sample of polls, because you have Emerson here +6. Actually, all of these are Trump leads or ties except for this morning consult one, which is Biden +1. And this morning consult one, which is also Biden +1. So I think it's interesting that they have Biden winning here, even though the polls are what's influencing the forecast, because it seems like Trump is leading most of the polls that they're using. What this means is that they're using more than just the current polling to predict. They're using past trends in past elections, and also probably past polling error, because in 2022, 538 had Republicans doing better than they actually ended up doing. So they're probably partially taking that into account for this forecast. And down in the next section, I actually believe they give reasons for this. So they summarize what I've basically already said, that Biden's favored to win 522 out of 1,000 simulations, and Trump is favored to win 474 out of 1,000 simulations. But down here, it does mention that Trump was convicted just a week and a half ago. And since then, in the 538 average, he's lost ground in the polls. It says he's fallen from a lead of 1.7 to 1.0 in the national popular vote polls. And it also says that the forecast thinks there's more room for Biden to improve, but that he's lagging in key swing states, with his margin in Pennsylvania being just 1 point. So it seems like for this model, they're taking into account polling shifts, which is why Joe Biden does have the slight edge right now in the model. But it's 52 to 48, so that's basically a toss-up. It's very, very slightly favoring Biden. So down here, 538 actually says that the forecast is based on a combination of polls and fundamentals such as economic conditions, state partisanship, and incumbency. And it's not meant to call a winner, but rather to give you a sense of how likely each candidate is to win. So basically, right now, they are saying that it's a toss-up. And even though the forecast did just drop today, they do show how the forecast has changed over time. They apparently ran it using the past conditions. And so going back to April, you can actually see that Biden was a lot more favored than he is right now. And throughout April and May, Trump was gaining ground on him. And I assume that after Trump was convicted, that's when it started going back and forth. And right now, Biden has a very slight edge. And they do include Kennedy here, and that's for popular vote purposes, because you can click on what they believe the popular vote's going to be, and that hasn't changed all that much. But right now, it does have Kennedy taking almost 8% of the national popular vote, which obviously is probably going to hurt Biden, according to polling. So right now, they have Biden at 47.4% of the popular vote and Trump at 44.9%, with Kennedy taking 7.7%. And that's kind of a change from the beginning of April, where Biden was at 48.5 to Trump's 45.2, with Kennedy at 6.4%. So right now they have Kennedy taking more than he was taking 2 months ago, and also they have Biden's margin as being smaller than it was 2 months ago. 2 months ago it was 3.5%, and now it's 2.5%. Though it is worth noting that Trump's peak was in early June, when he was only behind by about 2 points. Now he's behind by 2.5 points in the popular vote, so it is trending towards Biden, and I think that's why, even though this popular vote margin would result in a Trump victory, Biden is slightly favored in this model. The last tab they have here is the electoral vote tab, which just shows their probability of how many electoral votes each candidate is going to get. And right now they have Biden at 274 and Trump at 264. Obviously, you need 270 to win. So I know I sound like a broken record, but this model is showing a very, very close election right now. The next part of their model is an individual breakdown of each state. So here they have all of the toss-up states, which is pretty common knowledge if you're following the election at this point. Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada are all of the states that they have as pure toss-ups. And their definition of toss-up up here is there's a less than 60% chance of either candidate winning in the state. They also have the most likely tipping point states outlined in black. If you don't know, the tipping point state is the state that would put whatever candidate wins over the 270 mark when you line each state up left to right. And so here they have Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and Arizona as the most likely tipping point states. I find it pretty interesting that they don't have Nevada here. Even though Nevada is a small state, only has 6 electoral votes, because of how close it is, I figured it might be at least a little bit likely that it would be the tipping point state, but 538 doesn't have it as one of the more likely ones. The next part is kind of a continuation of this part, and it just shows the closest races. So the forecasted margin of victory here, you can see all of the closest states in their forecast. So Arizona they have as the closest state, with Trump only winning it by half a point. And so, of course, all of these states that I mentioned as toss-ups when we were up in the previous section are all very close here. Nevada, Trump winning it by 1.0 points. Wisconsin, Biden winning it by 1.4. Pennsylvania going to Biden by 1.6. Georgia going to Trump by 1.6. Michigan going to Biden by 1.8. And North Carolina going to Trump by 2.4. And just to show a clear picture of what this model is showing, I mapped out all of these states by the margin that 538 is giving them right now, according to the margins that I normally use in my prediction videos. So as you can see, they have it as quite a nail biter right now. Joe Biden at 270 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 268. This would mean on election night, we would need every single state to be fully counted, or at least called, to know who the next president is going to be, because without any of these states, Biden wouldn't be at that 270 mark. And something else I found interesting is that there aren't many states here that are categorized as lean in my projections. I categorize states as lean Republican or lean Democrat based on whether I think they're going to vote between 2 and 5% for either party. And in this model, there are only 17 total electoral votes that fit that bill, and that is North Carolina, which has 16 electoral votes going to Trump by a little over 2 points, and Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, which has 1 electoral vote going to Biden by around 4.5 points. And those are the only states in this entire model that are between 2 points and 5 points in terms of margin. And so what that basically means is, other than these 6 states that I have as tilt here, there aren't really any other important states for this election. The election is definitely going to come down to how well each candidate does in these 6 states. Right now, in this model, Georgia is Donald Trump's best state of these 6, and Michigan is Biden's best state of the 6. And something I found really interesting about this model when I was actually looking at the margins of each of these states is that it looks like 538 has a lot of trends reverting kind of back to 2020 and 2016 levels rather than accelerating like I would have thought. For example, it has Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District shifting towards Trump when a lot of people anticipate suburban trends to shift towards Biden. And this district did get more Republican during redistricting, but not to the point where I think it would trend to the right by 2.5 points. They also have states like Ohio and Iowa trending towards Joe Biden when those states have been trending towards Republicans for years. On the other hand, they have states like Virginia and New Hampshire trending towards Trump when they've been doing the opposite. They've been zooming towards the left. Something else interesting that I noticed is that they have some deep blue states not being as blue as they were in 2020. For example, Colorado, they only have as D plus 11.8 when Biden won it by close to 14 points in 2020. New Jersey, they have it as only D plus 12.1. I think Biden won New Jersey by 16 points in 2020. So I actually just checked, and yeah, New Jersey was won by Biden by almost 16 points in 2020. Now they have him winning it by a little over 12. Illinois, they had Biden winning by 14 points when he won it by 17 or 18 last time. Delaware, Joe Biden's home state, they have him winning by 15 when he won it by close to 20 last time around. So they have a bunch of deep blue states trending towards Donald Trump. Another one down here, they have New York going to Biden by 16 points when he won it by over 20 points in 2020. He actually won it by 23 points. So this is a 7-point shift in New York to Donald Trump. And I didn't really see as much of that with the red states. I think Montana might be a little closer than it was in 2020 in this model, and maybe Mississippi. But overall, it's really all of the deeper blue states that have been trending towards Trump in this model. And I think that's partially an explanation for why the popular vote is closer than it was in 2020, but they still have Biden winning. If Trump's doing better in deep blue states but not doing as well in the swing states, that makes for a much less efficient electoral college coalition than in 2020. Down here past the close races, they have the snake chart. That basically just lines every state from left to right. And so right now they have Wisconsin as the tipping point state. That's the one that puts Biden over 270 in this model. And if it were to flip, that would put Trump over 270. And down below this, they have unusual and not so unusual scenarios, just showing maybe Biden or Trump winning in a landslide and the probability of that and stuff like that if you want to check this out for yourself. It's kind of interesting, but I don't find it super relevant. One thing here that I will point out, though, is the probability of each of them winning the national popular vote. Right now, they have Trump at 37 out of 100 chance to win the popular vote, which is way higher than he's ever been before in any of these models as far as I remember. So that just goes to show how much better Trump has been doing in polling this time around. And I'm actually going to go through the older forecasts and compare them to this one just to see at the same time in the previous election cycles where Trump was. So just to remind you, up here they have Biden at a 52% chance of victory and Trump at a 47% chance of victory. If we look at the 2020 election forecast, by the end, they had Biden at an 89% chance of victory and Trump at a 10% chance of victory. So that is a huge difference. Trump, it's basically a coin flip for 2024, but by the end of 2020, it was almost certain that Biden was going to win, according to the 538 model. If we go back to the same point in time for me, that would be June 11th, we can see that it wasn't quite as lopsided, but they still had Biden at a 75% chance to win, where now in 2024 they have him at a 52% chance to win. And you can see that in 2020, for the most part, the model stayed pretty stagnant or favored Biden a lot. If you look at the 2024 model, it has pretty much been trending in Trump's direction for the last 2 months, except for right after the conviction, where it has been trending a little bit more towards Biden. We still have to see how that's going to play out, but for now, it doesn't look like it's hurting Trump really that much. If we go back to the 2020 election forecast, we can go down here and see that the chance of Trump winning the popular vote in this forecast was 3 in 100. And in the 2024 one, it has at 37 in 100. So obviously, the new forecast is much more favorable to Trump than the 2020 forecast was, obviously because a lot of things have changed since 2020. But if you look at all of the states that it said Biden was going to win, Georgia was there, which he did win, but it had North Carolina there, it had Florida there, and it had all of these states much bluer than they were in reality and than they are in the 2024 forecast. For example, they have Ohio and Iowa being extremely close and Texas being only a 1.5 margin. They have Florida being very Democratic, which obviously didn't end up happening. And Nevada and Michigan were barely in play according to their model, where now Nevada actually is in Trump's column and Michigan is barely in Biden's column. If we scroll up, we can see the outcomes. And in this one, it was very likely, apparently, that Trump was going to only get a little over 100 electoral votes, whereas Biden was favored to get almost 400 or over 400. Now, in this one, having Biden at 400 and Trump in the low 100s, it's very, very unlikely. And it's a similar story when you look at 2016. By the end, Hillary Clinton had a 71.4% chance of winning, with Donald Trump at a 28.6% chance of winning. And obviously, everyone knows how this ended up turning out. Trump won. It was a huge upset. I pointed out 2020 a lot more because I feel like a lot of people don't remember how much Biden was overestimated in these models. But 2016 was a lot more apparent because everyone had Hillary Clinton winning, and then Trump ended up winning. But again, 538 had North Carolina going blue. It had Florida going blue. It had the Rust Belt a lot deeper blue. Well, actually, Trump won these states in 2016, but they were very deep blue in these models, and then Trump ended up winning. So overall, even though Trump is not favored in 538's new model, it is much more favorable to him than the 2020 or 2016 election forecasts were. And to 538's credit, in 2016, they were really one of the only websites that gave Donald Trump any chance of winning. A lot of people had Hillary Clinton winning. 99% of the time. Same kind of in 2020. And when 538 makes mistakes like this, where they had Biden winning by a landslide when he really only won by a very small amount, they do adjust. And so I do respect 538's model. I don't necessarily agree with this. We'll get to that in my next prediction. But I do like the model, and I think it's interesting. I am going to keep up with it as the election progresses. But for now, that's really all I have to say about the new 538 model. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like my content, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell so you know when we upload. Also, leave a like and comment and let me know what you like about the video, what you don't like, how I can change things for the better. And again, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.